and welcome to another one of our interviews with intimacy coaches, or another one of our interviews with intimacy coaches, an insider's view. So today we have Shakyla with us. So hello, Shakyla. That's the sort of official part of
Hi.
this all done. I'd just like you to introduce yourself and just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you came to find this work and whatever you want to share about it. And then I've got some questions for you as well. But it's very chilled and very laid back. And we're just sharing things that most of our clients probably can't talk about, but would be very interested in hearing about. Because when it's two coaches chatting, then we can do this. This all came out of a marketing thing where, it's a good idea to like interview your clients and stuff. But when you're an intimacy coach, interviewing your clients is next to near impossible because
Yeah,
they need the
yeah.
privacy.
Right, right. My name is Shakyla Kaybree. I'm from the US, residing in Georgia at the moment. So it's funny you ask, who am I? Because I recently had an epiphany, as far as, we give ourselves titles and all these things. And who I am in general, I am an intimacy healer. I feel like I am a guardian of intimacy, and I feel like I've been that way since birth. Because even as a child, I would write poetry, um, of the I would say of the sensual sorts, but to a certain extent, being in middle school and high school and all those things. I'm also a doula, so I'm a birth keeper. Um, and for me, those two things go hand in hand because birth is so intimate, and to have a true spiritual birth experience takes effort, just like intimacy takes effort. So I work in those two arenas kind of as the same. I'm a guardian, I'm a healer, and um, that's who I am in general.
Well, that's so beautiful because, again, that's the portal to life entering this existence, depending on your belief systems or whatever surrounds that for you. But again, it's this universe, it's this portal into being, whether that's
Hmm.
a portal into pleasure, being for yourself, or to share with another, or to birth life. That's really beautiful that you've managed to combine these two modalities and these two sort of holistic methodologies. I really love that.
Hmm.
And what drew you into working as a doula?
Um, so that actually came to me before becoming an intimacy coach. But for me, it was like, like I said, birth is one of the most intimate things outside of death, to me. I don't know if I could be a death doula, but I knew that, the creation of life takes man and woman, masculine, feminine energy, and that creates life. And I feel like that's a very intimate thing. And then there's the correlations of the things that you do in labor are similar to the things that you do in sexual acts or intercourse to get the baby out. What gets the baby in gets the baby out. And
Yes.
and it called to me, and I wanted to be a part of that. And life comes full circle because even as a child, going back to that, even as a child, I wanted to be an OBGYN. But I never was a school person, so I don't think I could do school for like 12 years, but still in the birth arena, and even as a doctor, you're not as intimately close with your clients. Like there's that continuity of care where I have built a relationship and a real bond with my clients. So to be in the birth field, I think doula fit me best, but it just called to me because it's just an intimate part of life. It's part of the life cycle, life circle, and it called to me. So,
The lovely, beautiful thing about the integration of these two modalities is that often when we are in reproductive mode and we are birthing children and we're going through the very mammalian processes that's involved with, it's lovely to have a sort of spiritual or esoteric understanding of what's going on as well, so that you can integrate your clients' belief systems along with the birthing process, and then also teach them things moving forward that they're going to be able to use in their intimate lives, but have been have been woven into the birthing experience. So it's not birth is in one experience and then intimacy is in another experience. And it's all of these things weaving together in this
Together.
tapestry.
Absolutely. That you take into your parenthood, your family unit, and what you teach your child because they're watching mom and dad interact with each other. And so I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but even with that, working with clients in the birth work, I noticed that it's really it's more difficult to guide them in their intimacy journey to a fuller extent when they're pregnant to birth. You know what I mean? So it's like if I can get clients before they become pregnant, it's a little easier as a doula. As a
I
doula.
understand.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's one of the things I do love about teaching the perineal massage techniques, though, so that, during the birthing process, hopefully there's less tearing if people have gone for that as an option. And I don't believe that there's only one right way to do anything. I think there
right.
are what ways or what paths appeal to you, what you find resonance with. And the beautiful thing is when we teach those techniques for the massage, it's actually a birth technique. However, it's a little bit of a doorway through to pleasure too, because it teaches couples how to become intimate, how to learn to breathe through pleasure and pain, because it's only one nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody
Absolutely.
forgets that. It's just one nervous system. Whether you are in the throes of orgasm, whether that's AW-egasm or O-orgasm, doesn't matter. Whether you're in the throes of connection with the universe or whether you are giving birth and you're in great discomfort and possibly a fair amount of pain, there is orgasmic birth available, apparently. I didn't have one.
Yes.
But apparently some people can do it, and maybe we will be the guardians of those particular gates. We might be the
And
sort of people that will help people have better, more pleasurable
right.
experiences instead of pain. That those nervous center reactions, those nervous system reactions can be channeled differently. And all that
Yes.
breathing and touching and that's involved with perineal massage can be taken into your intimate pleasure life. So it's a bit of a bait and switch, but not. So you're teaching people incredible technologies for having extended and expanded states of orgasm or pleasure, but it's also to help you with the birthing process because very few things in the human body work solo.
Right. Right. Like life in itself in the universe. Everything is intertwined, everything is connected. I like to believe we are our own little small universes. So we function quite like the bigger picture, as above, so below, right? So
Yeah.
even as far as like the orgasmic birthing, I believe in that. I totally do. But even if you don't have an orgasmic birth, it doesn't have to be torture, right? We can shift our perspective to where it's not as hard or treacherous as labor has been now painted. You have coping mechanisms that you can use during labor that helps you triumph over the contractions that may be a little too hard. And like you say, you have your partner there who's working with you to get through those moments, quite like life, right? So it all works the same. There's a baseline, and then there's a baseline of what things are, but they show up in different ways, very multifaceted. And like you said, you may resonate with one thing more than the other. A mother may like a double hip squeeze or, swing back and forth with her partner. Like it's a baseline, but they show up in different ways. So whatever resonates with you to kind of help you maneuver and get through the labor as best as you can. And the beautiful part is it's multidimensional because you are still connecting with your partner in the process. And so that's a story you guys can have. Not you guys, but
Well, I mean, I had a beautiful water birth planned, but my son had different plans, and I ended up with an emergency cesarean. So sometimes life doesn't exactly work out to being this sort of
Mhm.
master plan. Like my birth plan was one thing, but the reality was another. And I'm okay with that because I do believe that there is a way to work with science, with medicine, with esoteric approaches, with holistic approaches, with alternative medicines, with plant medicines. I believe there's a tapestry and everyone has to decide for themselves how that fits together. I normally run screaming if somebody says to me, this is the only way to do it, or this is the right way to do it. This would be a recommended way if this is the outcome
Mhm.
you are looking for, would be perhaps the way I would say certain things. And of course, it's so lovely sometimes to teach couples or even single women the processes of expanded pleasure states, because it's the same processes you teach for expanded pleasure states that you teach to actually get through the birthing process and to have
Mhm.
less perineal tearing, which it blows my mind how it fits together, because we're not really taught that. We're taught separate boxes. But
Right.
the beautiful thing about that is when you are a young mum and you are actually looking to building your family and you're working with your career, perhaps, because a lot of people don't have the option to be able to be stay-at-home parents or mothers anymore. It's wonderful if you've got those pleasure processes and less of the fear, guilt, and shame patterns in the body moved away from the pleasure, to take that further in your life, especially when you're exhausted. And I mean,
Mhm.
new mums are exhausted. Often the intimate life is the first thing that goes out the window when
Yeah.
you've got a little baby. It's all this. I suppose it's
Definitely.
like getting married. It's all about the marriage day, the wedding day. It's all
Yeah.
about that, and then the honeymoon, and then what?
Right.
We're
Right.
often not given techniques for beyond birth or beyond the wedding or beyond where is the happily ever after in the fairy tale? We're
Right.
taught the
Right.
whole fairy tale happens and then they lived happily ever after. But how?
Right. The things we've been taught through media and unfortunately some people's example through their parents is it's not sustainable. It doesn't get us through the follow through, right? It gets us to the wedding day, it gets us to the birth, right? But what does parenthood looks like, what does an intimate life looks like while you have a young child? And I'm actually starting to see that the intimacy goes in pregnancy a little more often now, because the throes of life get them. I have a client now who's struggling, very overwhelmed and all that stuff. So even before they even have the baby, the intimacy is going in the pregnancy phase. So, there's definitely room for for growth and teaching of people.
Absolutely. And it when you know the techniques and you know how to be in these pleasure states, and you drop a lot of the muck that surrounds it to a large extent. When we actually see pleasure as just being its own thing. It doesn't necessarily have to
Mhm.
attach to anything else. And how good it is for us and how good it is for our sensualness. It's amazing how this stuff integrates into every facet of our lives. I did have some questions here for you as well. I wanted to, oh, I'm going to have to find them now. Hang on a minute. I told you it was going to be very laid back. What's been the most surprising thing to you about learning the intimacy coaching work and the intimacy healing work?
What comes to my mind when you say that, the first thing is the contagiousness of it. And I say that because me healing my intimate self um, inadvertently has affected my partner, as well as my sister. And that is something I didn't see because I'm doing more things that is self-care, related and aimed that helps with your intimate life. And it actually is rubbing off on my sister, and I'm starting to see that a little bit. So I would say the contagiousness of it, is a bit surprising.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that. That actually took you by surprise, like not realizing that your
Yeah,
own personal journey was going to have impact on everyone
right.
around you to
Indirectly,
the
not
extent.
not
Yeah.
being intentional about it, and
Mm.
especially with my sister, more so with my partner, I did want it to rub off on him, but when I started to see it in my sister, I was like, oh wow, okay, that's cute.
Yeah. Cute is always a good start. And I was going to ask you as well, how does your partner feel about you learning this work? And, has there been any changes within your own personal intimate relationship with learning this work?
Very much so. We are in a whole different phase in our relationship now. I would tell anybody who, if you wanted to ask, me and my partner have been together for 5 years now, 5.5, and we were at a rough spot. We really were. And we actually were making effort because we could identify the issues that we had. We didn't know how to communicate. That was the biggest thing. So we could identify issues like, oh, you don't know how to talk to me and all this, that, but we didn't know how, And so with
Mm.
me taking this class and getting those tools and me being the one to say, okay, let's try this, let's try that, we are actually when I say we're in an elevated phase, it's true partnership now. We have goals that we're setting, and I really feel like I have somebody that I can do life with now. Whereas before
Mm.
it was like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do this. Really. And it's like sometimes when I look back, I'd be like, why did you stay? Why did you stay? And I honestly don't have the answer to that right now.
Yeah.
But I stayed and we got through it. But it's a 180 experience now. Like it's truly connected, truly spiritual in different aspects. We are really rising financially. Our spiritual, we never really talked about spiritual things, but we come to find out we share a lot of common thought, beliefs and stuff like that we never really shared. So health, wellness, all those things are starting to come together. And, I wear a smile a lot more now, I should say.
Oh, that's wonderful. No,
Yes.
I love that. It's one of those things that this sort of communication and this sort of intimacy practices, and that they're not just logical mind practices, because a lot of people say, yeah, but I do communicate, we do tell each other everything, we don't lie, there's lots of honesty. But sometimes it's
Mhm.
not about the lack of honesty, it's about the lack of knowing how to express yourself in certain situations, or knowing what's possible. I mean, it's very difficult to explain to your partner that you actually want to have more of a parasympathetic nervous system orgasm as opposed to a adrenaline orgasm if you don't
Right.
know the two different sorts of
Right.
pleasure. So you
Right.
can't guide them and say, I'm in the mood for this tonight, or I'm in the mood for more of that, or, this is my trigger point when we're doing this. And often those things will come up in a moment of anger instead of a
Mhm.
moment of actually planning those difficult
Right.
conversations, those brave conversations, and using techniques to be in the correct nervous system for conflict.
Right. Yeah. And it's an art. It's definitely an art work. It's a frame of art to communicate and communicate properly because there's timing, there's the right place, the right time, the right tone, the right delivery. And then a lot of times we say things that we don't mean, not on purpose. It's just because we haven't processed it enough or had the technique of truly saying what it is we want to say. And
Mm.
sometimes it takes talking out because we've had conversations where um I guess I'm about to get personal a little bit. Um I've been a little stressed at work, and we had a conversation about my personal sex drive being a little low right now. And at first, the conversation was like, well, it's you. I was pointing a finger, but he allowed me to keep talking and I'm realizing, like, no, I'm work. So sometimes
Mm.
it is knowing each other and trusting each other enough to know that to let them talk things out and then you kind of can uproot. So it definitely is an artwork. It's not just, well, I said what I said. Well, did you mean to say what you say? Not that you purposely didn't mean it, but do you know well within yourself what's going on to be able to communicate to your partner? So,
And that's such a huge thing, the libido thing, because often when we have quite a high creative drive, sex drive, libido, or a very vibrant sexuality, it doesn't mean it's always vibrant. It doesn't mean it's always on full force and 100% ahead. And I run into that as well with being an intimacy coach. People sort of expect you to be incredibly sexual all the time. It's like, but you're doing this work with clients, and so why are you now wanting more to watch telly and do your? I've been crocheting lately, as I'm really,
oh,
I'm really
I
starting
love crocheting.
to. Oh, me too. I love the meditation of it, But
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's a very interesting look. I want to watch telly and do my crochet, but I'm an intimacy coach. Surely I should be swinging from the chandeliers and having more 2-hour orgasms and things. I've had all of those experiences, and it's not that I'm never going to have them again. It's just that there's ebb and flow, and
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
we when we're partnered, often our partners can take it as a personal rejection when our sex drive dips. And that can be for so many reasons. It's not just because we not attracted to our partner or we
Right.
are exhausted. There are a myriad of reasons. They can be hormonal, they can be life path, they can be exhaustion, they can be too high cortisol levels, there can be a whole lot of different reasons for that libido to drop. And it's not just to do with I don't actually fancy you
Right.
sexually at the moment.
And
And
that's
having the
typically not
wherewithal
the
to
issue, right? That's
no,
usually
there's
not the
and also I think this thing is very difficult for people who are very testosterone driven. You know, aka men most of the time in most cases. It's that they tend to have an easier time of it using sexual activity and contractive orgasm, which is a dopamine release, as a way of
Mhm.
falling asleep, a way of
Mhm.
feeling loved, a way of feeling involved, and a way of falling asleep. Whereas for a lot of estrogen driven beings, that's not our path. If we're feeling very stressed and very tired, the last thing we want to do is actually have sex.
Yeah, it shuts down. Yeah.
Yeah, and also because our orgasmic responses are shut down too from stress, from cortisol, from those sorts of things, because we are not in the correct nervous
Nervous
system for
system,
extended
correct.
amounts of pleasure.
Right.
So it's understanding these difference in the hormonal fluctuations, and that's got very little to do with being what we identify as. It's got more to do with our hormones and the state of our nervous system, and are we co-regulating with one another, and are we regulating the nervous system? That for me has been the most surprising part of this work, because when you're feeling good and all the juices are flowing and you're feeling nice and getting jiggy with it, it's like, oh, this is wonderful, fantastic. And I had this honeymoon period when I started learning this work for 2 years of feeling fantastic and being really quite sexual and sensual, and going, oh, this is glorious, because for a lot of women, it's not really a place we're allowed to go. So to have permission for pleasure and for exploration in the way of exploring this energy was amazing. And of course, life happens. So things tend to rebalance, renormalize, and then
Right.
you've got to meet each other's needs and have different sorts of conversations. And I do love these techniques when it comes to different sorts of conversations. So it really works, because it's not just about saying we're going to schedule to do a date night and we're going to do it. Goes a lot deeper than that when it comes to these really difficult conversations, and we need the languaging and we need to understand the experiences before we can even have the conversations around them. And how do you find this work with integrations with what you're already doing? And what are you integrating, and what's your work look like that you are creating? Because we're not a franchise, so I'm interested in what you're creating.
So, what I'm creating, let me find the language. What I created, because it's still unfolding. And
Mm.
to be honest to the listeners, it's still unfolding. But what I find is what I'm creating is very, how can I put it? To me, I focus on health as far as nutrition and moving your body, how that relates to your intimate life, and overall self evolution, and how that self evolution kind of carries through to your intimate relationships and your life. So I'm more based in like practical things that you could do day to day that ultimately has such an impact on your intimate life, and that you can carry in different aspects, like I said, diet and exercise is very important to me at this current moment. So that's something I want to kind of implement into my work. But also creativity, right? I didn't mention it, but I'm a poet. So a lot of creative activities that could help you go into that PNS, parasympathetic nervous system, because that is very meditative, like your crochet work. I have a yoni shop that I want to do. Well, I'm actually going to do next month, and it's implementing artwork in it, painting.
Mm.
Going from the talk of the yoni and your connection to your yoni into painting what does your yoni look like to you in this moment, and date it, because you may make a painting 2 months from now and it looks totally different because the relationship with your yoni has evolved. So I would say creativity and health and nutrition is some of the things I'm implementing into my work to kind of be to reframe how people look at intimacy, because the first thing they think of is sex.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's the outcome of the equation. Your sex, it equals what you're doing in the forefront. So those little small tidbits is things that I want to implement into my work to kind of show people that it doesn't have to be what positions you're in the bedroom. What positions are you in outside of it that kind of helps what it looks like. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. It's like, what is your life position as opposed to your sexual position? But we're always
Mhm.
looking for that quick fix. That's why it's so fun to flick through a magazine, and it's like 10 ways to regenerate your sex life, or to have this or have that.
And
And
it's so simple. Like, I think for me, people don't understand how obtainable an intimate life is.
mm,
Like
mm,
intimacy is very diverse, right? It can show up in different ways. It can be esoteric, it can be spiritual, but it's also obtainable if you do
yeah.
practical, little small practical things, you know what I mean? And they make such a huge difference. And for me, definitely, because I was dealing with reproductive issues. I
Mm,
noticed when I
mm.
changed my eating habits, like it really affected my connection with my yoni too, right? Because I was frustrated with her. I'm like, what are you doing? Is it that I'm almost 30? You want to, go on a rampage? But no, let's be serious. Like, no. um, you're still young, honey, please.
Yeah, you are. You are so young.
Um, but it was rooted in a lot of confusion because I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, I didn't understand it. What are you doing? And that affected how I felt about my own yoni. But literally, when I changed my eating habits,
Mm,
it quieted her enough to where I could have a conversation with her, right? Not that they completely dissipated, but I gained understanding because I started to feed her differently and I nourished her differently. And it made me kind of calm down, help her calm down so we could, have a conversation and be like, okay, this is what's going on. And this is how we fix it and work it. And then like the exercise thing. So that's important for me to relate to my clients, that you may, fibroids and all these things, they're running rampant now. I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but in the US, there's a high percentage of women that suffer with reproductive issues. Um, and there are small things we can do to fix that. Everything isn't like, it's not going to magically go away. There are levels to it, but there are small things we can do to sometimes quiet the yoni enough so we can have a conversation with her and reconnect with her. So that's my spew.
I love that. And I think when you're birthing, whether you're birthing a baby or whether you're birthing a new way of having pleasure in your body, or a new way of having an intimate life, these are all birthing processes. Whether you're writing poetry and birthing poetry, or whether you're
Mhm.
birthing a baby, whether you're birthing a business, whether you're birthing a new intimate life, you need nourishment. And I
Mhm.
love that word at the moment. It's been coming up a lot, this nurturing and nourishing. We do that as women so easily for our children, for our friends. We hold space for people to be nurtured and nourished. But are we doing that for ourselves and for our own pleasure?
And are you
Pleasure is
truly
often forbidden.
nourishing? Are you truly
Mm,
nourishing if you don't have that within yourself?
yeah.
You know, so can I love in frustration? Meaning, if I'm so depleted to the fact that me doing simple acts causes resentment within me, what is the energy I'm putting behind the act that I'm doing? Is that true nourishment? To me, I would say no. It's
Mm.
not. So we really have to replenish, know what reciprocity is and know what replenishment is. And even for ourselves, if we nourish ourselves with small acts of self-care, that matters. I don't care if it's a bath, I love the sauna.
Mm.
I love going to the sauna. I've actually found a slew of things. When I tell you I've been all about me for the past couple of months.
Yeah, she's been doing her homework.
Oh, yes, yes. And I love it, like I just love it. So
And
I
do
think
you
that that
find that I find that as soon as I start concentrating on, filling my own cup and not just doing it in a way, okay, I've done that now, tick that list, okay, let me get on with it. When I actually am sitting in it and thinking, what do I need? And looking to filling the parts of me that I've been looking outside myself for, and
hmm
looking to partners and looking to friends and actually doing it for myself. And not that the connections with others are not as important, but when we
Right.
really do take it on, because if you had to come to me as a friend and say, I need this and I need that and I need the next thing, and I would make a list for you and say, try this and do that, and and I would be so happy when you were doing all these wonderful things for yourself. But when I do that for me, I'm like, oh, is that okay? Is that
Right.
okay? Because does that mean that my husband's not getting so much attention, or that my children are not getting so much attention, or so it feels more difficult when we're doing it for ourselves, but yet we then have so much more to give. I mean, you are glowing at the moment. You are
Oh,
looking magnificent.
my
You're just,
therapist
and
said the
we've got the
same thing.
universe in the background of yourself here. It's like, you are just gorgeous. I
Thank
must say,
you.
I'm feeling a bit dried up, old prune at the moment
Oh
talking
no.
to you because you're just like glowing. It's so lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank
It's just a reminder again for me to also do the nourishment, do the nurturing, and go back to the basics. And because I teach this work all the time, sometimes I switch off to it. So when I speak to the coaches and we have these sort of conversations, I go, oh, yeah, I remember. Go back to square one. Go back to the
Yes.
breath. Go back to breathing. Go back to looking at needs, looking at pleasure, looking at this existence, all of those things. They work so beautifully together. All right, let's tie up with I think we've answered all of these, which has actually been lovely just in the general course of our conversation. But if there's anything you really want to share with people about learning this work, what would that be?
Like I said, that it truly is obtainable and the results of it is beautiful. And to also understand, like you were saying, there's an ebb and flow. There's a ebb and flow, there's a rotation to everything, right? So you do get to a point where you're built up. And sometimes you do have to go back to even get to the next level of up. It's not always up, 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 up. Even the earth hits a certain point and turns back around just to hit that point again. So understand that it's this. It's not this, it's not this, it really is it's a dynamic work, it's not static. You're gonna find yourself up and down, and even when you're up, the things you've learned to get yourself up, when life starts lifing or whatever, you don't feel like
When
having sex
life
with your,
starts laughing,
yeah,
yes.
because life will never stop. It will never stop lifing, when you don't feel like having sex with your partner, or you're frustrated with work, or maybe your finances aren't where they need to be. The things you learn to get up will help you get through the down. So it's definitely, it's resources, it's tools, and it's practicality to it, and as simple as it sounds, it could be a lot harder for people to do, because it does require you to self-reflect, to look deep within yourself and uproot, like that yoni connection. Like I was saying, you may look through the artwork 2 months later, it may look different because you may not have that connection to yourself. And sometimes getting to that connection to yourself could be a little difficult, because you have to look at yourself like, ooh, I've had to have those moments, but it's definitely, it's a dynamic work. Don't feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right, or if something doesn't feel good to you, don't do it, because it has to resonate to you. What worked for me may not work for you. And that's another reason why you have to get to know yourself and on a deeper level. I like to write poetry. You may not like to do that. That might not be a refuge for you, but it's very, it's like fireworks. It's all over the place, and even the fireworks have to quiet down for more fireworks to spark, if I'm making sense. So,
You actually are. It's I was, as you were talking as well, I was realizing as well that in the place in the world where you are now moving into autumn. And the place of the world where we are, we're just coming out of winter. So there
oh
are different
wow.
seasons even within our life frames at the moment and our
Hmm.
life designs. And so being in sync with those, and I'm busy planting seeds at the moment for moving into the next season. And you're in fruit at the moment. You're beautiful and glowing and blossoming, and it's okay to have these phases. We don't have to
Hmm.
be on all the time. We don't have to
Right,
be, even when we're intimacy coaches, we don't, our own lives will still have ups and downs and ebbs and flows. So that was a beautiful reminder. Thank you for teaching me something today. I
oh,
appreciate that.
thank you, thank
That was
you.
that was beautiful. That was such a great reminder for me. Because often when you're in charge and you're teaching other people all the time, you tend to think, "Oh, I've got it." Every time I think I've got it, there's another lesson
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
I've got some good techniques, I've got some good tools, I've had some good experiences, but have I got it? Nah, because we're here to experience it. We're here to
Right.
be in lifing. I really, really like that. Because life will just start lifing.
Yeah, it will. I'm telling you. But it's okay. It's okay when life lives. That's what it's
It's okay
supposed to
when
do.
life lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love this universal and the colors in your background at the moment as well.
Oh,
It just
thank you.
makes
Let
me
me let me give
makes
her
me
her
so
little
happy.
shine.
She's beautiful. Wow.
That's my
Yeah.
daily reminder. My daily
It's
reminder.
just
Yeah.
lovely.